Hi, James.
Hello, Dinara. So, everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to look at the fifth recording, so the fifth listening sample task. And with this one, it's essentially, so it's multiple choice, basically. So you've got the three different options of he'll definitely do it, he may or may not do it, he won't do it, and then you've got these things, the five different topics underneath, and you need to decide which letter is correct, and you can use them more than once. So once again, I would recommend read this information, read the instructions carefully, and have a look at the options written before tackling the listening task. Come in. Oh, hello, Jack. Have a seat. Right. You said you wanted to see me to talk about your options next semester.
That's right. We have to decide by the end of next week. Really, I'd like to do all 5 options, but we have to choose 2, don't we?
Yes, but the choice depends on your major to some extent. You're majoring in communication studies, aren't you?
That's right.
So, for example, the media studies option will cover quite a lot of the same area you did in the core module on mass communications this semester. The development of the media through the last 2 centuries in relation to political and social issues.
Well, that was interesting, but I've decided I'd rather do something completely new. There is a women's studies option, isn't there?
Yes, women and power. Again, it has a historical focus. It aims to contextualize women's studies by looking at the legal and social situation in the 19th and early 20th centuries.
So it would be useful if I intended to specialize in women's studies, but I'm not sure I do actually.
Well, it might still be useful to give you an idea of the issues involved. It's taught by Dr. Steed.
Oh, really? I'll sign up for that then. What about the option on culture and society?
That addresses the historical debate on the place of culture since the Industrial Revolution in Britain.
So, a historical focus again?
Do I get the message you're not so keen on history?
Well, it's just we seem to have done quite a lot this semester. Anyway, I'll think about that one.
Okay. If you're interested in a course focusing on current issues, there's the option on identity and popular culture. That approaches the subject through things like contemporary film, adverts, soap operas, and so on.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Can you tell me who runs it?
Well, it's normally Dr. Stevens, but he's on sabbatical next semester, so I'm not sure who will be running it. It should be decided by next week, though.
Sabbatical, is it from the word Shabbat?
I think it's related to that, but basically a sabbatical means that you are that you're taking a year off. So as in that's what sabbatical.
Vacation, right?
So it's taking a year off at any time. Yeah. So if you continue.
Right. Well, I might wait until then to decide. And the last option is Introduction to Cultural Theory, isn't it? I'm quite interested in that too. I was talking to one of the second-year students, and she said it was really useful. It made a lot of things fall into place. So,
yeah,
what does it mean?
Yes. Made things a lot of things fall into place.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So makes sense, basically.
I see. Mm-hmm.
Everything's falling into place, or it's like saying everything's coming together, everything's making sense now, so that's what it means. But yes, but in fact, in your major, you'll have covered a lot of that already in Communications 102. So that might be less useful than some of the others.
Oh, I'll forget about that one then.
Now, while you're here, we could also discuss how you're getting on with your core module assignment. So that's it. So now we're going to have a look at options. So we're going to have a look back here. And actually, just before I start, so this is so early on in the text. So it showed something that happens very often in English. So it's a process that I believe is called verbing. So it's where you change nouns into something that is usually a noun, like major, into a verb, majoring, so to major in something. So, and that happens a lot in English. And actually you can see a lot of it's a common form of word innovation in English is to change a noun into a verb. So it is very common. So it's just something to look out for. So sometimes you'll see things that you consider to be a noun, but the way it's being used is in the sense of a verb. So a majoring is a good example of this. And you see that in that where he says, yes, but the choice depends on your major to some extent. There, the major is the noun. You're majoring in communication studies. So there it's a verb. Actually, major can also be an adjective as well. So, these words that have different parts of speech, you should be careful with these that cut across so many different parts of speech. So what does Jack tell his tutor about each of the following course options? So remember, A is he'll definitely do it. B, he may or may not do it. And then C, he won't do it. So we'll look at media studies, so as in, is he going to do media studies? Well, let's have a look at what he says. So for example, the media studies option will cover quite a lot of the same area. And he says, well, that was interesting, but I've decided to do something. I'd rather do something completely new. So in that case, he won't do it. Okay, so he won't be doing media studies because he wants to do something new.
To be honest, this task is difficult even for me, even though I understood everything we read, and because now they're checking our logic.
Yes, of course. And I think this is one of the problems as well, is that you've got to pick up on the cues of, so you've got to pick up on the implicit meanings, not only the explicit meanings. So for example, he does not directly say, I won't do that, or I'm not interested in that. What he says is, it was interesting, but I'd like to do something new. So there, it's not explicitly stating, I don't want to do that. He's actually saying, I'd rather do something else. So implicit meaning is that he won't do it.
So very, very British style, first of all, I want to say, because Americans, they are more straightforward. And because this exam is British, I suppose, because that's why.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a bit of a mix, basically. So it is a mix, but British people tend to be a bit less direct. That's definitely true. But it depends a lot on the setting as well. So especially if you're in a customer service setting or something like that, then Americans can, so it's, hey, how are you? Oh, that's wonderful. But really inside what they're saying is, I hate you. You're the worst person in the, on the plane. So it does depend on the context, basically. But we do tend to be more indirect and use these phrases that don't mean exactly what we're saying. That's definitely the case. Maybe less fake, but at the same time, more confusing. So that's how the breakdown works, basically. But it definitely is something I've noticed when you go to, but there's specific reasons for that. There's, so I think in Britain that there's this cultural tendency to not make a scene, and as in not make a scene and not trouble. Yeah, exactly. So there's this emphasis on politeness that is not always good. So it's good in some contexts, but in others not so much. And then the American example I provided, that's that. The reason why they are so friendly and so sort of that they're trying to come across as nicely as possible is because a lot of the time those the waiters in particular get paid very little money and they live off the tips. So so it's not always genuine. so that's what I would say about both, basically. So you do need to be careful of the meanings. Exactly.
It took me some time to get used to British, let's say, all these phrases which are not clear, yes or no. But after I got used to, after that, like most people in the world, they seem rude to me.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Because there's that classic example of I'm not too sure about that. So I'm not too sure about that. Yeah, not too bad. So, and a lot of it actually comes in the tone and the stress. You can hear, so as in, so for example, so if you've got that classic example of I didn't steal your book. This one, if you unstress it in a, so that, but I didn't steal your book, that means it was somebody else. So I didn't steal your book. So as in I borrowed it, then I'm suggesting I borrowed it. I didn't steal, so then I did something else with it. I left it, as in I borrowed it.
Yeah.
As in I didn't steal your book. So as in I didn't steal your book. There I'm emphasizing, no, it belongs to somebody else. I didn't steal your book. So if you're stealing the book, no, I stole something else. So it's so you can also tell, so you can tell a lot from the stress, so not too bad. Not too bad. So that's good. That's positive. Not too bad. Negative. So a lot of this information is little cues you can pick up from the way people are saying things as well. So because stress is obviously it's a big deal in the English language generally. So you can make so many of these subtle differences by changing the stress, so of particular words. So let's look at women and power. This one, I remember this one was a little bit confusing because obviously Jack says, so because the reason why this one is a little bit confusing is that he specifically asks about a women's studies option. So you can tell there's interest. But then he said, oh, but, as in I'm not entirely sure I'm not sure I want to specialize in women's studies. And then eventually, oh, really, I'll sign up for that, so, and then when he finds out who's teaching it, then he goes, oh, yes, I'll do that then. So with the I'll sign up for that then, so we know that's he'll definitely do it. But you can see even with that one, there's a couple bits that were not entirely 100%,
Yeah.
So, and then the 23 is going to be culture and society. Let's have a look. What about the options? So clearly there's some interest. So a historical focus, again, not so interested because he's done a lot. So, but he says here, anyway, I'll think about that one. Think about that one. That's a may or may not do it. Although actually, well, a lot of the time when British people say, I'll have a think about it, usually it means no. But so as in, it's usually it means no, but they want to say no. So, and I've noticed this comes up in some cultures. It's just, like Japanese people also don't like saying no directly. As in saying, we'll consider it. Same in Ireland, actually, because and I remember speaking with an Irish friend about this, and he said that he thinks the reason for it is that there is not a direct yes, but the way he described it might be wrong, was because his first language was Irish. He said there isn't exactly a direct yes or no. It's usually like, yes, that is true. It's more like that is so, or that isn't so, so they will use a phrase instead of saying yes or no. So it's a slightly longer phrase. So,
the same. So in Russian, we have yes, no words, but when people especially when it's about money. And they instead of saying no, they say we'll think about it. Even when we go to the market or want to buy something, and instead of saying no, it's expensive, we say, oh, I'll think about that.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. So, and yeah, it is. I think that's very common, especially with. Yeah, we'll mull it over. We'll have a think about it. We'll consider it. Exactly. These sort of things. Usually it's a no, but not always. There's always that option. So, culture and society is B. So 23 is B. 24, identity and popular culture. What did he say about identity and popular culture? That approaches the subject through, that sounds interesting. Can you tell me? Well, it's normally Dr. Stevens, but he's on sabbaticals. That means he's not there next semester, so I'm not sure he'll be running it. It should be decided by next week. So he may or may not do that one. He's going to wait to see who is teaching it. Then we've got, so that's 23, 24, both B. And then finally 25, introduction to cultural theory. This one and the last option, and that's because obviously the Dr. Ray says that you've already covered a lot of that in a previous module, so it might be less useful. And then he says, oh, I'll forget about that one then. So again, this doesn't say exactly, it doesn't directly say no, but the meaning behind it is a definite no. So that's quite strong. I'll forget about that. That is C.
Okay, very interesting as usual. You tell a lot about cultural background, not only the language. And guys, we are sure you are all from different countries. We'll be very excited to read about what was unusual for you in, let's say, British culture. And maybe some of you were in the UK already, and will be. I really like reading or listening to about what was your cultural shock.
Yeah, your culture shocks, exactly. So I'm sure that you can tell certain things are going to turn up as well. So I know that the hot and cold taps is usually something that everybody finds very odd. So because in most British houses you have the older ones especially, you have a hot tap and a cold tap. So you can either have very hot water or very cold water. You don't have a mixer. But it's always interesting to find out these things. But anyway, everybody, so well done. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.